Okay, I think, Your Majesty, that we're good to go now. My apologies for the delay.
None needed. So, good morning, Atlantia, and welcome to Curia. And it's the first Curia we've done that's online. Therefore, it's very, very accessible to everyone. We didn't have to travel to go anywhere. And by the use of YouTube, it'll also be visible to everyone that is interested. It doesn't have a seat on Curia. We'll go through things. I want to especially thank the IT team that's come together and pushed this over the finish line for us. It's been a lot of work for them, and it's been a busy weekend for all of them involved. So it's been absolutely wonderful to see the results of their effort, and I know that they've put in a ton of work. So we should all acknowledge that and appreciate that work. With that said, I'm going to go hand it over to Her Majesty. She's got set the table for us on how we're going to proceed and a few items of business to take care of at the beginning. So, Her Majesty.
All right, thank you. First of all, as the IT team has already recommended, please turn off your video if you're on the call. We need to cut down on the bandwidth, okay, to make it stream as well as possible. So thank you, everyone. His Majesty and I will be the only ones on. Lucky us, you get to see us live. Secondly, this session is being recorded. Everyone needs to understand that it's being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, you need to drop off the call and don't participate. Otherwise, you will be recorded. Okay? Everyone is on mute except for His Majesty and I. If you have comments or questions on a section as we go through, please put that comment question into the chat. All the chats are being captured so that they can be considered as we relook at the law after this Curia.
So the way that Curia works is that we've published the law changes that we've recommended to Curia. They've been reviewed by Seneschal and the Clerk of Law. They've been vetted for conflicts with our society bylaws.
And Curia.
And Curia, and they've also been looked at by the grade officers. So we've done that amount of vetting. So what we do here is we go through and we'll review each one of them. And if people have comments or something or concerns, we will capture those. We probably will not involve a discussion at this point. That's not our intent for this. Our intent is to capture any concerns, review those concerns with that particular part of law before publishing an official copy. That's the purpose of Curia, is to capture any concerns or things that may have been missed or that sort of thing.
Something we didn't think of.
Right. So that's how we're going to proceed. We've got a lot of items to go through. I know the meeting is booked till 4 o'clock. Our intention is not to take till 4 o'clock, but we'll take what time is required to work through things. You got some more thoughts, Your Majesty?
I did. So first of all, we had asked for comments to be sent to us in advance, and we did receive some comments. So I just want to go ahead and state that for the people that we've received comments for, which is from Sarah Van Aerd, let's see,
Robert.
From Avise, from Jocelyn Deltremer, from Etienne Lemons d'Anjou, from Her Excellency Baroness Aza, from Jacinta of Highland Ford. We have your comments. You guys made some excellent comments, and we will take those into consideration when we're looking back to revised law for its further
For its final publication.
for its final publication.
So those are well done.
Yeah. Also, just so everyone knows, when we first resolved to do this, it was because the current kingdom law was quite messy. There were number sequences out of order. There were typos. There were cut and paste errors. All of those are non-substantive. All right. So we're not going to really go over those in the meeting. That's just hygiene, right? You're just cleaning up a messy formatted document. What we're going to talk about today are substantive changes to the law that people can make their comments on, right? All right, so we are going to start now. Obviously, we're going to start from the beginning and just work our way through the changes.
We're assuming everyone has a copy of this that you've downloaded online and you can reference it. And we're going to work through the document in that way.
Yes. So obviously we're going to change the effective date of the laws. It will now be effective April 2021, assuming we can meet the publication date, which we think we can do. All right. We will change the copyright to 2021. I see now in this one it's 2020, but that was pointed out to us. So we'll change that to 2021. All right. The next paragraph where we talk about what version of Curia it's based on. We have changed that to October 19th, 2019. If there are subsequent Curia changes that we need to change that to before we publish, we'll do that. If you hear puppies growling or barking in the background, I'm sorry. They're trying to get in on Curia. Okay. Section 1.1, requirements for publication and effective kingdom law. We've adjusted this a little bit to say it can be submitted for publishing in the letter, in the kingdom newsletter, or its electronic supplement. And that's because we do have a way of publishing additional things as a supplement. Therefore, we're not specifically tied to that 2 months ahead deadline to be able to meet the ACORN submission deadlines. All right. And again, we've updated that in 2 places just to say either in the Kingdom newsletter or its electronic supplement. Moving on. One 1.2, well, I'm trying to see here. There's no, oh, we took out and the publication of a Kingdom newsletter electronic supplement because we've already addressed that up above. Section 2, duties and powers of the Crown here. Some of this we just decided wasn't in the right sections. So we've moved this around to appropriate sections that it should be in. And some of them we felt were outdated and they just weren't applicable any longer, all right? So we've taken out the list of awards. We now have a Herald's office that takes down all the awards and that's what goes into the OP, et cetera, all right? So this has been changed. You can see that all the regalia pieces have now moved to a regalia section, or they're going into the Kingdom Exchequer's policy, which is where they should, you know, it's a better place for them rather than a kingdom law. It's really more geared towards policy. So you can see that. We have changed that the crown must reside within the boundaries of the kingdom throughout the duration of their reign. All right. We also talked a little bit about regalia in here, that you have to maintain it in the same state that you received it, subject to normal wear and tear. The Chamberlain will establish a process for the turnover, and possessors of regalia or other kingdom property are liable for any damage or loss to such kingdom property due to their negligence or misconduct, and to return any regalia to the kingdom chamberlain no later than 1 week following the coronation of their heirs. We've had some comments to ask us to specify the difference between regalia that passes from reign to reign and some that's held longer. And we'll take that into consideration to make that bit clearer. And thank you, Yedika. We see you, Yedika. We see your comment. So thank you. All right. 2.2, ensuring the continuity of reigns. I believe that's, I can't tell it by this copy. We've moved that. That's about crown tourneys, succession of the crown. We've moved that to a new section under events, which is where crown tourney, which is an event, needs to be. Eligibility for crown tournament, again, those have moved to the crown tourney section. You can see under 2.2.1, we've just said that in case either of the heirs is unable to assume, the remaining heir shall assume the duties of both. Right? We have had in other kingdoms where one of the heirs has either deceased or been unable in some other form or fashion to complete the reign. If neither of the heirs is able to assume the throne, a new crown tournament shall be held at the first possible event to ensure succession. If neither the sovereign or the consort can't complete the reign, the remaining monarch shall assume the duties of both until the coronation of their successors. All right. And then finally, in the case that neither the sovereign nor the consort is able to complete a reign, if the heirs have been chosen, they'll be crowned at the first possible event. If they have not been chosen, the kingdom's seneschal shall then ensure a crown tournament is held. Victors shall be invested immediately as sovereign and consort after the tournament. In the interim between the abdication of the monarchs and the crowning of the new monarchs, the kingdom's seneschal shall hold those powers, which will include holding in trust the regalia and records of the monarchy for the future crown, and conducting such correspondence in the name of the crown as is deemed necessary for the function of the kingdom and to ensure continuity for the future reign. So it's basically, in Atlantia, we're saying the seneschal acts as a temporary regent, all right? It's done differently in every kingdom, but here, that's what we're saying, okay? All right, all the rest of this that's related to crown, we'll get to when we get to the section we've moved it to. Thank you, Yadika. I see your comment about that too. All right, enacting, changing, and repealing law. Here we reworded in 2.3.1 just to say it, the crown shall create, modify, or repeal. And then there's numbering, just renumbering here, as you can see, to make it line up. Royal, if we go to 2.5, royal records, we've added that royal records and electronic systems access. Everything now is, a lot of it is majority electronically. There's not a lot of paper copies of anything anymore. So royal records are now defined as all correspondence concerning sanctions, complaints, or investigations in progress, including emails, notes, letters, and all other records relating to these matters. Pending correspondence in relations to treaties or charters, and pending official correspondence from any society officer. Transfer of royal records. Thank you, Morlena. We'll look at that. We tried to make it consistent to be gender neutral, but there may be a few places where we don't have that or where we need to add both for clarity. Thank you. So transfer of royal records. The outgoing crowns must transfer all royal records to their heirs or the kingdom seneschal on or before coronation. All right. And we've already defined what those royal records are. So anything that falls into that category needs to be moved over. Okay. Access to Atlantean electronic systems, section 2.5.2. The kingdom web minister or his designee shall ensure that the heir shall be granted access to the award recommendation system, the electronic system for pollings, and access to all order watch lists no more than 15 days after winning. None of, heirs will be granted access to begin conducting their own pollings no less than 30 days prior to their coronation. They'll be granted access to the court docket site no less than 30 days. And these are all just carryovers. Current monarchs have precedence, and the heirs will be granted access to read all pollings, okay, with no less than 30 days prior to coronation.
You're right, Karen, when I already wrote it down.
Thank you. Curia Regis. All right. In section 3.1, we've just said that the members of Curia Regis are, and we changed from Crown Prince and Princess to the victor and consort of Crown Tournament. Again, in our attempt to try to be gender neutral. 3.2, instead of persons attending, we've said members of Curia Regis may speak. This, just to clarify, the only ones under kingdom law who are permitted without, without regale, without having to be called on, I guess, or you'd still be called on, but is the members of Curia. Now, that doesn't mean that other people cannot speak if the crown chooses to recommend, to call on them, okay? People can hold up their hands, the crowns can recognize them, okay? Let's see. Thanks, Morwenna. We see your comment. 3.3, Curia Regis notification requirements. Here we've just added the electronic supplement piece that we've added from when we were talking about the way that laws are enacted and how things have to be published, okay? Instead of the acorn, we just call it the Kingdom newsletter. I think everybody knows that. And if for some reason in the future, Atlantis should rise up in arms and decide to change the name of the acorn to a different name, Kingdom newsletter will still be applicable. All right, next. 4.1, great officers of state. We have added back the Kingdom minister of the lists who will going forward now be a great officer of state. Section 4.2, duties and responsibilities. Here you can see we have not necessarily, we haven't changed any of the wordings. We've moved from letters to bullet points. Okay?
Consistency.
For consistency. Yeah. Sometimes there were bullet points, sometimes there were letters. So we've just tried to make it just one way, bullet points. So 4.3, again, just to change to bullet points. 4.4.1, I see that somebody did make a comment that it needed to be changed to, I think, MD/DC Regional Kingdom Seneschal, and we'll make that change. 4.4.3, the officers of state reporting to the Kingdom Earl Marshal, or we have added the Deputy Earl Marshal for rebated steel. And the minister of the list has been removed because the minister of the list is now its own great office. 4.4.4, we've just specified Kingdom non-member registration, which is called NMR. This is a change. It was called a non-member surcharge, but under Curia, that is changed now to registration. Four 4.5, these are all just changing letters to bullet points. I'm going to keep going until we actually get to a substantive change, which is 5.1.1 under Great Officer of State and Officer of State selection, term, and removal. Thank you, Edwin. We see your comment about 4.4.6. The beginning paragraph of 5.1.1 has just been reworded to say, after the solicitation of applicants, great officers of state are selected and appointed by the Crown in consultation with the Kingdom Seneschal in accordance with Curia 7I1 or 711. All right, and that's just to be consistent with the language that's in Curia currently. And again, further down, you can see in the last bullet point, we've just put in the actual correct citation in Curia that it refers to. Some of these had old and outdated references because obviously Curia has changed and been updated. All right, 5.1.2, again, thank you. We've reworded this to also be in line with Curia. After the solicitation of applicants, officers of state are selected and appointed by the Crown in consultation with the applicable great officer of state in accordance with Curia 7I2. And that has also been revised at the last bullet point. Officers of state are ratified and warranted by the corresponding great officer and the Crown. All right. So we have to sign off on all of those. All right, moving to our next substantive change of law. Which I'm looking for. I think it's 5.9. Removal of great officers and lesser officers. In accordance with Curia 7K3, great and lesser officers may be removed for just cause, stated in writing to the officer by joint action of the Crown and the corresponding superior officer. If there is no superior officer, the Crown may act unilaterally, right? Again, we're trying to clear this up. Officers of state, great officers of state, there's been some confusion there. And so we're just clarifying it. And we're also making certain that it corresponds with the language that's currently in Curia. And 5.10 is removed because now it's covered by the new 5.9, where we talked about great officers and lesser officers, covered by the same mechanism and paragraph. All right. The next substantive change is in 5.13, duties of the kingdom seneschal, where we've changed one of those to clarify maintaining membership lists as necessary for governing of the kingdom and make those lists available to other great officers and officers of state in need of validating membership as part of their duties, right? We did have a comment that relates to could some of the times the membership lists be available to other branch seneschals, and that'll be something we'll talk with the kingdom seneschal about in consultation as we look to the revision of the laws.
I think this was a question.
Kelrick, is there a need for a reason or just a notification? And you're talking about back into the removal of officers. I actually think you actually have to give a reason. Hold on, I'm trying to find that section now.
Just stated cause.
Hold on.
5.9.
Thank you. May be removed for just cause, stating in writing to the officer.
As written.
As written. You know, I mean, you can't just say you're gone. You have to say what your just cause is. Okay. Where am I at now? Hold on.
Yeah, when you put comments up, it's really helpful to see the corresponding section number.
Yes, that would be great. Because if I'm going rapidly here, I could lose track. All right. Now I'm getting to the next one.
5.13.
5.13.
Marguerite's helping you.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Margaret. All right, next substantive change. Looking through. A lot of these, like I said, are just numbering. Looks like 5.16.1. Obviously, we've eliminated that because that's now its own office, and you'll see these have moved to the new section for that office. So that's just a move. Okay. In 5.15.1, we've again added not just the Kingdom newsletter, but its electronic supplement.
So remember surcharge 15.16.
Oh, thank you.
That's
what did
good.
I miss? Oh, thank you, Morwenna. In section 5.13.5, under duties of the Kingdom Calendar Coordinator, please note, everyone, we have changed the 150-mile event restriction to 75-mile event restriction, okay?
This one will give you this comment about is as we come back from the pandemic and as events start happening on a smaller scale, the need to be able to have smaller events close to each other is going to present itself. This number may change back in the future once we get to whatever the new state of normal is, but it is a recognition that SCA events for probably the next few years are going to be smaller than what we are normally accustomed to. So we want to make sure that people can have events locally, and we are supporting the local effort. That is the intent behind the law.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. So we have a comment online that other people can't see the comments.
Yeah, we understand, but this is an audience for Curia, and this is the format that we've got at this point. So we're working with it best we can.
Okay. Sorry, I missed that. Let me go ahead now. Back to where I was. The next substantive change is 5.16.2 under the Kingdom Chamberlain. We've modified the second and third bullet point. The second bullet point is now be responsible for the maintenance, repair, and storage of the royal regalia and property, including notifying the Kingdom Chancellor of the Exchequer of those items in need of repair or replacement. And the next bullet point, maintain an accurate inventory and database of regalia and property, including any regalia and property transferred to royalty. Now you can see over here on the right, there was a lot more, okay? And a lot of that has now been moved to a different section.
And a policy.
Or into policy, into the Kingdom's Exchequer's policy, all right?
Where laws better fit policy with consulting the officers, we move them to policy.
Yes. So most of 5.17.2, there's a whole bunch of it that's been moved now to, it'll be moved to policy. 5.16.4, this is again where we're just making the change from non-member surcharge to non-member registration, NMR. Next substantive change is 5.2.1, duties of the Kingdom Minister of the Lists. And again, this was just a lift and shift, right? It was under
Deputy.
a deputy position, basically, or a lesser officer. Now it's its own Kingdom office, and here we have the responsibilities. Section 6, we've changed territorial barons and baronesses to territorial baronage. Okay. And territorial baronage, the reps of the crown, upon their investiture, they're confirmed as the baronage of their applicable barony, whatever one that happens to be. All right. In here, we just changed it to be consistent. It's baronage throughout here instead of barons and baronesses. In 6.1, we have the same duties and responsibilities of territorial baronage. All right. 6.2, the same change. 6.3, again, it's the same change for the header. And then we've just modified the next section. The initial term of office is here defined as 3 years. The term may be renewed for 2 years. However, no more than 2 renewal terms of 2 years will be granted, i.e. no more than 7 consecutive years, all right? And again, the renewal terms are going to be subject to the pollings of confidence as are discussed later on, all right? We've changed barons and baronesses to baronage, again, for consistency. The same thing in section 6.5. And in 6.6, 6.7, 6.8, 6.9, all changes from baron and baronesses to baronage.
Missed one, Baron, 6.5.
6.5.
Missed one in there.
I missed it. Oh, let's see. Oh, thank you. I see it. Thanks, Yadika. Okay, I see that someone has a comment about a question about court baronage. A court baronage is an award.
Yeah.
It's not territorial baronage, and I'm not sure what your question is, just that you have one.
So awards are handled in the award section.
Yep.
If that's the question.
Okay, the next substantive change is 6.11. Destruction of baronial pollings. Baronial pollings and pollings of confidence must be destroyed at the completion of the reign who conducted the polling and invested the new baronage. Seven, events. Events may occur in person or virtually, except as otherwise specified below. I think you guys can guess why we made that change, since everything's virtually now. Next substantive change is, let's see, 7.6.
I don't think so, Elder. He said that was his question earlier. 7.2.
Capitalized fee in the title. Oh, thank you, Morwenna. Typo, thank you. All right, back to 7.6, I think, which is the next substantive change. All right. So here we're talking about protected kingdom events and their weekends. Spring Crown Tournament, we've just specified that this event may not be virtual, okay? Fall Crown Tournament, again, this event may not be virtual, nor may War of the Wings be virtual, okay? 7.7, and here's where we've moved and modified the section on Crown Tournament, all right? And I'm just going to read through this. In accordance with Curia 4, the Crown shall hold a Crown Tournament to choose their successors. Crown Tournament shall be a double elimination tournament. Once the Crown Tournament list is drawn and set into the list tree, the Crown, the Marshal in charge of Crown Tournament, and the Minister of the list in charge of Crown Tournament shall sign off on the list. Once the list is signed, no changes may be made to it unless all of the above listed signatories agree to and sign off on the changes. The victor of the crown list and their consort shall together assume the possession of successors to the crown and the titles of crown prince and crown princess as appropriate to their gender. Alternatively, the titles of crown victor and crown consort may be used. This again is to align with Curia, right? People can choose. They can be a prince and princess, or they can be victor and crown consort. 7.7.1, eligibility for Crown Tournament. I also want to say, just because this is marked as red line does not mean that we actually made changes to every one of these. It's just showing as red line because we moved it from where it was, all right? But I am going to read it all just so everybody can be clear. Eligibility for Crown Tournament, in addition to the requirements set forth in Curia 4A2 and 4B, all combatants and their consorts in the Crown Tournament must be presented to and acceptable to the Crown, be willing and able to fulfill the duties of the Crown, intend to make an honorable attempt to compete for the Crown, be subjects of the Kingdom of Atlantia for at least 1 year immediately prior to the Crown tourney. Oh, I'll make that Crown Tournament. I see we have it inconsistent. It's tournament and tourney in different places. Submit a letter of intent to fight in Crown Tournament to the Crown by the due date set. The letter of intent shall include all the following required information: their modern and SCA names, along with their addresses, email addresses, and phone numbers, membership information, including the number and expiration dates, any additional information requested by the Crown, and have arms registered with the College of Heralds or present proof of heraldic submission through a warranted herald prior to Crown Tournament. You can see there are asterisks by a couple of these, and that refers to that these requirements may be waived at the discretion of the Crown.
Okay, so we got a couple questions.
Yeah, I see.
7.6.
7.6, we're going back. If the weekends need to be moved, is it still a protected date?
It's a protected date, and if the weekends need to move, that'll be taken into accordance, but it'll be handled as a one-off. But for law, it's a protected date.
Yeah.
If there's already something scheduled against it, that'll have to be worked out with
That'll
them.
have to be worked out on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
7.71, residential address rather than a PO box.
Some people only have PO boxes for mail. Some people have residential. If there is a question, we will work with the seneschal's office to resolve it. The seneschal, it has to sign off on the list also.
Yeah.
Seneschal does the proof of membership and residency.
Does the membership info need to specify that the length of membership needs to last through the reign? Not to fight in Crown. I mean, that will have to be taken into account should they win. Obviously, it'll have to run through the reign.
But eligibility is not based on that.
No. They just have to be members in good standing as of the date of Crown tourney. Okay. All right, 7.7.2, withdrawal from Crown tournament. Either the combatant or their consort may withdraw at any point in the tournament without loss of honor by notifying the Crown or the minister of the Crown list. If either the combatant or their consort chooses to withdraw during the tournament, they are both eliminated. 7.7.3, exclusion of offices for the Crown. The victor of the Crown list and their consort shall vacate any other offices held at the time of assumption of the office of sovereign or consort. The heirs may use the time between Crown tourney and coronation to divest themselves of any other office. Is it the intent that landed baronage must step down, or can they have a stand-in? You mean, would the Crown appoint a vicar while they're...
A vicar could be appointed, or they could resign.
That's a good comment. Thank you, Guinevere. We'll take a look at that. I think sometimes we're talking consorts in general, and then sometimes we're talking about the actual consort, but we'll go through and look at that. 7.9, non-protected kingdom events and their weekends. Here we've added an asterisk related specifically to university. The university chancellor, after consultation with the Kingdom Minister of Arts and Sciences and the Crown, may choose to cancel one university session in a year. Right now they have 3. And again, she could choose to, right now virtually, it is a lot of work. You're reaching a huge amount of people, but it is a tremendous burden upon the university staff. So if it's very heavy, they may choose to just have 2 universities instead of 1 in a year. And if that decision is reached by the Minister of Arts and Sciences, the Crown, and the University Chancellor, then that weekend would become free.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now we have a couple of comments. 7.8. Oh, yes. For some reason, that's not shown as a red line, but we changed 150 to 75 earlier. For some reason, it didn't get denoted here as a red line in section 7.8, but it is a change, right? Non-protected will be, you can't have it within 75 miles. Thank you, Morwenna. All right, Paganis. A clarification around the membership. Okay, thank you. We'll look at that.
We'll match Curia. There's no problem.
Yeah. And
but I think that's covered by saying you have the requirements met by Curia already stated. That's the first requirement to Fighting Crown.
What is the ramifications of a 2-a-year university 7.8? Again, as we said, it'll just free it up.
Right.
I mean,
it means there's 2 and not 3. And it could be a free weekend that allows groups to schedule events.
I mean, it's non-protected anyway.
Yeah.
So it really wouldn't change much of anything except you wouldn't have a second university, a third university that year.
We're empowering the people who are doing the work to say, we need a break before we just force somebody to do something because a law says do it and it burns people out. This is not a dictate that they must reduce it to 2, and it's not a requirement that they can't reduce it to 2. It is an option that we expect the Kingdom Officer of ANS, working with the Chancellor, to come up with the best recommendation for the Kingdom and their teams.
All right. So, Lady Guinevere, I don't know, you say it also isn't spelled out like the other numerals. Which section are you referring to? Because I don't know what you're referring to. Yudika, I see your comment. I think that's something that's going to be discussed. An event actually worked very well this year. So I think that's going to be an option. And indeed, we didn't say it couldn't be virtual when we talked about required events. We said they could be virtual or in person, and only certain ones could not be virtual. Okay. Spelling out the number in 7.8. Are you talking about 75 miles? Oh, okay. All right. There's a grammatical thing that once you have a number over a certain amount, you don't spell it out, you just use the number, but we'll look at that. You're right, Caroline, we'll look at that. It could be a hybrid. All right. Okay. Thank you for your comments, everybody. All right. Kingdom event rotations, 7.9. So guys, we just removed this. It's not working. I think everybody who's been here knows that the rotation system, it's just not working. And it's just because different groups have, I mean, there are restrictions in different places. To hold events sometimes in the north are very expensive. And
sometimes in the south, there's not enough resources.
Right.
So, and from being on the bid committee for about 1.5 years and not receiving bids for Kingdom events, and having to go out and solicit them, the system that we have here is a paper tiger and not working.
Yeah. So we'll go back to people will put their bids in for Kingdom events, and it won't have to be region specific. Hopefully the bid committee will take that into account when they're looking, but we're just not going to make it a fixed requirement. Okay. And you're right, Eldred. I mean, we can't rotate things during the pandemic. I mean, we're doing a lot of virtual, and you know, there are going to be restrictions on by different states modernly according to size numbers. Some may have larger amounts than others. So all of that stuff's going to have to be taken into account.
So the takeaway is this: we're going to remove this, and I'm sure in 1 year or 2, after it's had a chance to be exercised with coming out of the pandemic and also having a time when we're closer back to our normal state, there can be some refinements to it, but we're removing it for now because it's not functional.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Nivian. I see your comment. All right. Next substantive change. I believe it is 7.10.2. We took out from the Kingdom Seneschal's policy because technically that's all in financial policy. So we're just making it consistent. 7.10.3, we've removed that. The expenses for conducting an event may be funded from the Kingdom or shared between them. Okay. It should be handled just like any other event under the financial policy, Kingdom event under the financial policy. And then here we did capture the change from 150 miles to 75. 7.11. Okay. All right, the next substantive change is 8.3, Kingdom awards and orders. And we've just changed it from king and queen to monarchs. Again, one of the monarchs to be gender neutral. All right, moving on. The next substantive change is 8.6, award and order precedence. You know, all this the old language was just to carry over from bygone days, basically. We've changed it now to say that award and order precedents shall be set by Triton Herald. That office is in charge of the awards and the documentation of the award structures.
It's the Office of Record.
Yeah. The next substantive change is 8.11, informal pollings. And we just removed it. It doesn't need to be documented anywhere. I mean, the Crown can ask the principal to arrange a straw polling or an informal polling or whatever they want to call it. It's not something that has to be covered under a kingdom law. It's just as a needed or as desired, right?
You don't need a law to say what's your opinion.
Yeah. Okay. 8.11, the new 8.11, pollings for peerage orders and kingdom orders of high merit. We've changed this so that we are acknowledging the electronic world that we live in today and the electronic systems that we're using. Peerage orders and kingdom orders of high merit may be given by the Crown after an official written, electronic, which is via the ESP system, or verbal polling of the members of the order regarding the qualifications of a candidate.
Let's read it.
I lost my place. Hold on. Each polling shall be considered valid for the duration of the current reign and subsequent reign, but no longer. No change. That's how that one's been. All verbal pollings must take place at an order meeting at an event that has appeared on the kingdom calendar. A verbal polling is only open for the duration of the order meeting in which the polling is conducted. Order members must be present at the meeting in which the verbal polling is conducted to be included in the verbal polling. Verbal pollings may not be conducted by proxy. All written and verbal polling results shall be made available to the heirs for use during their reign. After the validity period has passed for a polling, all polling responses shall either be destroyed by the monarchs, if written or verbal, or purged from ESP by the webminister or designee. And this is just to clear everything up. We have things in ESP. I mean, we have people on watch lists that have been
Peers for years.
raised, have been elevated. We have responses that look like you could still raise someone, in a, open recommendations. So this is really just a cleanup mechanism, all right?
And it's also to clearly call out the methods for doing a polling.
Right, because once the valid polling time frame runs out, you need to do a new polling, right? So if there's a name from 2 years ago still in the system, it's very confusing to the monarchs and to the principals.
So what it means that the verbal polling is only for the duration of the meeting. It means if you do a verbal polling, the polling is only taking a polling of the people who are at that event.
And that meeting.
In that meeting. It's not that we had a verbal polling and then people who weren't there write in.
And Larry, as far as awards, we'll talk about that, but certainly awards can be given based on verbal pollings. Otherwise, why would you need a verbal polling?
Yeah, they wouldn't have any valid purpose.
All right. So we'll keep going on that one. No wandering the hall with a clipboard. Thank you. That's right. Which is confusing in the law. What is confusing in the law, Valeria? I'm not.
The clipboard or?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
If the pollings are valid to give an award.
Polling needs to be valid.
Yeah, pollings need to be valid to give an award. That's true. Okay.
Right. Verbal polling record requirement. Then the lease of validity after the meeting seems.
It is the definition of a verbal polling is that you're there to respond verbally. Yep.
No, it just means that you're not taking polling responses, verbal polling responses after the meeting ends. In other words, show up with your feet to the order meeting and give your responses. We'll take a look at it and reread it. We'll get some new eyes to look at it also, to see if it needs additional clarification. Right. The polling's valid, but no longer open after the meeting ends. Carradwood's right.
We are not monarchs that are going to utilize a verbal polling, but there are people who want to use verbal pollings, and we need to have a mechanism for how it should.
And we have in the
work.
past used verbal pollings.
Early rain.
Yeah. Right.
It was used quite often in Atlanta in the beginning.
Yeah, it was. All right. So verbal polling record requirements. All verbal pollings must be documented by the Crown. All right. And we got to write this stuff down. There's certain requirements you got to have to show that it is indeed valid. Right. Got to have your facts to back it up. 8.12.1 duties and responsibilities of order principles. We've moved that. 8.6 award and order precedents. David, we see your comment. We don't necessarily agree, but we see it. We acknowledge it. Award and order precedents, again, taken out and moved.
I want to say one other thing about verbal pollings to David's comment. There's no rule that says you couldn't hold the verbal polling virtually for that hour of that meeting and those who wish to attend and call in. We're not defining that. We're saying a verbal polling is for the period of which it is taken. It is not an ongoing event which further comment outside of that time period comments are received for.
All right. 8.13 written and 8.13 written and electronic polling record requirements. By the way, everybody, David's comment was, in the modern era, we should strongly consider eliminating verbal polling completely. There's no reason for it, and it could lead to arm twisting. And that's how I responded, and His Majesty responded is that. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'm acknowledging that the comment was made. 8.13, written and electronic polling record requirements. All written and electronic polling shall include name of the order, list of candidates, including the following for each candidate: society name, modern name, home branch if known, discipline and rationale for which they're being polled. Yes, no, or abstain, and comments, if any. Respondent's society name, respondent's modern name, respondent's home branch. Written polling shall be delivered to the orders by either the principal at the behest of the Crown or heirs, or by the Crown directly to those members of the order who are eligible to receive them. Written pollings must be returned by the members directly to the Crown, or at the Crown's discretion, their heirs. Electronic pollings are sent via the Atlantean ESP system by the peerage and order principals at the behest of the Crown or heirs. I see there's a comma typo in there. To those members of the order who are eligible to receive them. Electronic pollings are completed in the ESP system and are accessible by the Crown or at the Crown's discretion, their heirs. I'm going to stop here. I see we have a comment back on 8.12. Let me pop back.
I don't think we need to define verbal as virtual or not virtual. So it's just verbal.
Location and date of polling. No, I mean, if it's virtual, you'll say virtual was the location. If it's at an event, you'll say it's at, Crown Tournament or 12th night or whatever, and you'll give the date. All right. 8.14, polling residency requirements. The Crown shall not consider polling responses received from any member whose principal residence is not the Kingdom of Atlantia at the date of the polling, unless a person is an Atlantean citizen by treaty. Upon learning a member of a polling order has moved out of kingdom, the principal shall promptly remove that member from the polling list. 8.15. Thank you, Larry. I see your further comment. The logistics of that might be hard to do it both virtually and in person. Just depends on the location, I think. of wherever you hold the event, because some places don't really have Wi-Fi now.
Yep.
But thank you. I hadn't considered that. 8.15, principles of peerage orders and kingdom orders of high merit. Each of the peerage orders and kingdom orders of high merit shall have a principal who shall be chosen by the crown after conducting a written or electronic order polling from those within the order. The initial term of office is hereby defined as 3 years, which may be renewed by the crown, subject to the agreement of the principal, on a year-to-year basis for an unlimited number of terms. The crown may remove a principal at any time. 8.15.1, duties and responsibilities of order principals. Principals of the peerage order and the kingdom orders of high merit shall maintain an electronic mailing list for their order, which may be maintained as part of the ESP system. Each member of each order is responsible for providing the principal with their email address and keeping that address current. Provide the order with notification of the crown's intent to meet with the order. Maintain a database of possible candidates' information, work, and commentary in the Atlantean ESP system, accessible to the crown and heirs as needed. For 9, rights and duties of Atlantean subjects, we just made one change, which is we added the duty to be familiar with Curia Atlantean law, and we added and officers' policies. Section 10.1, and I know we've gotten at least one comment on this section in email, so we'll be looking at this one. Smoking and vaping are forbidden in any gathering area or other area where scheduled activities will occur of a society event, all right? Section 10.2, we've just changed from he or she to the attendee, again, in an attempt to be gender neutral where we can, and in line with Curia. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, section 11, minors. 10.1, should there be a mention of following / subject to rules of venues? That's a great mention. Yeah, obviously, if there are places that forbid smoking, then there's no smoking.
Or vaping.
Or vaping. Thank you, Marguerite. All right, 11.1.
But isn't it always assumed we're going to follow local ordinances and laws?
It is.
I mean, that's part of our foundation.
11. Definition of minors. Again, we changed to the correct section. 10.2, do we need to input an exception for unevent? Clothing restrictions. I don't know, Kedwin, that's a good question. I don't know if we talk about that in the event section or in this section, but.
Yeah, we know it's no garb.
It's optional, right?
We'll look at it. If it's not in the event section, we may add it to the event section or put it here. One way or the other, you're right, we do need to call it out. Just to cover the base. Thank you.
Thank you, Yadika. Unevent isn't an event. You would think so with the title, but it's actually protected as a kingdom event. So technically it is an event. It has a protected weekend. Oh.
Or else the weekend doesn't exist.
Oh, right. I don't know. It's an unweekend, an unprotected unweekend. Minors. Again, we updated this to be the correct section in the Society's Seneschal's Handbook. And we've tweaked the definition of a minor here, or adults. Adults are defined as persons who have achieved the age of legal majority or have been adjudicated as adults or emancipated minors by a court of law. People can be an emancipated minor, or they can be held as an adult by certain courts of law. So if they have that and the evidence of that, then they're an adult. Next, substantive change, 11.3, society standards for youth. Again, we've just updated this. The standards for minors or youth defined in the Society Seneschal's Handbook, section 10, shall be followed unless additional rules are specified in kingdom law or additional policies. Next, substantive change. 12.3, which was B and is now a bullet point. Again, we just updated the section to refer to the correct section of the Society Seneschal's Handbook. We had a comment about the last bullet point asking, should rebated steel be added to this? And it's our understanding from corporate that rebated steel falls under armored category, but we will double check on that.
We'll investigate.
And if we need to add it as a separate category there, we will. 13.1, boards of inquiry and courts of chivalry. A board of inquiry or court of chivalry is appointed at the Crown's discretion. Oh, sorry, 13, I missed something. Grievances and sanctions, we removed that last sentence, all right, because we've already stated it above. This was a copy. I think it was a cut and paste error where something was, it was copied twice. 13.1, a board of inquiry or court of chivalry. All right, 12.3. So we have a comment to maintain full status. A canton or shire must maintain the set of officers required in Curia 3C7. Needs to be noted as a change from Curia C6. Oh, thank you. It wasn't underlined. You're right. I see. It's stricken actually in the left section, but it's very faint. You can barely note that it was changed from 6, but it does say 7, 6 to 7. All right, going back to 13.1. And guys, I'm going to read this because this whole section was kind of a mess, a cut and paste mess, and things repeated. So I'm going to read it. We tried to clear it up. Hopefully it'll be clear. A board of inquiry or court of chivalry is appointed at the Crown's discretion to recommend further action on such issues as the Crown may assess, sanctions, or refer to the board of directors. Their aim is to discover the basis of the dispute, prepare a list of pertinent witnesses and evidence, and make recommendations to the Crown for further actions if applicable. The Board of Inquiry or Court of Chivalry may be as informal as desired by the Crown. Boards of inquiry may not find against individuals or levy sanctions. Their inquiries shall be of a problem identification nature. All deliberations of a board of inquiry or court of chivalry shall be held confidential, except that in the event that a further court is recommended, the findings and records of the board of inquiry or court of chivalry shall be forwarded to the further court. The Crown may choose to accept all, some, or none of the recommendations of the board of inquiry or court of chivalry. If the decision of the Crown differs from the recommendation, the Crown shall attach an explanation of their decision to the recommendation. After a final decision is reached, the Crown must send copies of all documentation and a final report to the Kingdom Seneschal to be placed in the Kingdom Record. 13.1.1, we just got rid of the little hash line, and it's not a court of inquiry anymore. It's a board of inquiry or court of chivalry. 13.1.2, responsibilities of boards of inquiry.
Drink some water.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I'm a little raspy. Responsibilities of boards of inquiry and courts of chivalry. Within 30 days of being named by the Crown, the board of inquiry or court of chivalry shall review the complaint referred to it by the Crown, investigate the matter, including but not limited to contacting those involved as listed in the complaint, Determine if the nature of the complaint made warrants sanctions or the convening of further courts. Within 15 days following the close of the inquiry, the senior member of a board of inquiry must prepare and submit to the Crown a written report setting forth the problem or issue identified and a recommendation, which may be part of the report, to either convene a further court or to dismiss the complaint. Within 15 days following the close of the inquiry, the senior member of a court of chivalry must prepare and submit to the Crown a written report setting forth the problem or issue identified, if not already completed by a board of inquiry, and a recommendation, which may be part of the report, to either levy sanctions or dismiss the complaint. The report and recommendation shall be signed by all members of the board of inquiry or court of chivalry. The recommendation need not be unanimous, but in the case of multiple opinions, each member must acknowledge and sign an individual recommendations. All right, so we have a couple of comments on this.
One, we don't investigate.
So if a court of chivalry or board of inquiry matters involves mundane authorities, are their findings expected to be made available to those authorities? Well, we don't have the ability to investigate
the society, the kingdom,
criminal actions or mundane civil law. All right, this is only for society, for kingdom.
If something moves over to the modern law area, the society steps out, and if mundane officials need to be notified, that's handled by the seneschal's office.
Right. And obviously, if modern authorities come in and they say, hey, do you have any knowledge of this? We and the Kingdom Seneschal will, of course, work with them and provide everything that we may have that's germane to the matter, because they're, you know.
We'll follow corporate's directive on this.
Yeah, we'll follow their directive, but and modern law.
We do not investigate modern law as a society. We do not have rights to enforce that. That is outside of the jurisdiction of the medieval recreation hobby society we're in.
Okay, let's see. There's another comment on 13.1.2, third bullet. Made warrant sanctions. Shouldn't that be may warrant sanctions? You're correct. Thank you, typo. All right. 13.1.3, sanctions for a court of chivalry. Sanctions include, but are not limited to, probation, which is a period of fixed duration during which an individual is to be observed. At the end of probation, the individual's conduct is to be reviewed. When probation is imposed, the Crown shall immediately appoint a panel to observe the conduct of the individual. The makeup of this panel is left to the discretion of the Crown. At the end of the probation period, the panel shall meet to discuss their observation of the accused's conduct and to make a recommendation in writing to the Crown to lift the probation or to continue their probation for a further fixed period of time, or to impose such other sanctions as listed in the laws as may be appropriate. If the probation is extended, the panel shall reconvene at the end of the extended probation period and review the accused's conduct during the extended probationary period. Banishment, see Curia for the types of banishment and the regulations regarding them. Recommend degradation from the peerage. This is a sanction that may be brought only as a recommendation to the board of directors. Temporary or permanent prescription from the lists. Temporary or permanent prescription from any specified activities within the kingdom. Referral of the issue to a court of courtesy. A public reprimand to be delivered by the Crown in court and published in the Kingdom newsletter and/or its electronic supplement. Removal from any or all Kingdom orders. Removal of arms is at the discretion of the Board of Directors. Removal from any or all offices held in the Kingdom of Atlantia in conjunction with the corresponding society officer as appropriate. And requiring specific acts of recompense or atonement. 13.1.4, appeal. Either side may appeal to the Crown the recommendation of a court of chivalry within 10 days of receipt of that written recommendation. The Crown will issue their decision on any appeal not more than 30 days after the appeal is requested. Any appeals of the decision of the Crown must be made to the Board of Directors. Courts of courtesy. So here we've just said, we've changed it from queen to queen or consort, depending upon the title. 13.2.2, sanctions for a court of courtesy. Again, we've changed the titles to be queen or consort. And then these are the things that are available to a court of courtesy. A private reprimand issued by the queen consort. A public reprimand issued in court and printed in the Kingdom newsletter. And I need to add there, or its electronic supplement. Requiring an apology or other act of atonement. Referral of the matter to a board of inquiry or a court of chivalry. The decision of the queen consort is final and cannot be appealed, nor can the same case be brought before a succeeding queen consort. The sanctions and decision must be in accordance with kingdom law, corpora, and civil law. All right, so now we have a few comments. With events that have happened in previous reigns, examples of William Thomas that have left people feeling disenfranchised, the concern is there seems to be a lack of policies dealing with the monarch's behavior. I know it's a touchy subject, but I've had several questions about it.
The easiest way to get banned or banished from the society is to be a monarch.
And to do something
Right.
bad. Yeah.
The board of directors, society officers keep a very close eye and provide feedback to the monarchs. Things get missed, but that is the primary mechanism of how society deals with it. I don't know what else to say about it.
Right. I mean,
The way if behavior is bad, they're not automatically in the next crown. They're not automatically in any other crowns, you know.
right.
Yep.
I mean, frankly, anyone in a position of power can abuse it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't legislate and write for every single potential possibility. But I mean, we do have checks and balances as far as people brought before the board, people going to the seneschal. And clearly, if there's a concern with a monarch's behavior or any person in authority's behavior, you should go to the kingdom seneschal. And if it's the kingdom seneschal, you should go to the corporate seneschal. All right. You just go up the chain till you get to the bod. And at that point, we don't have a whole lot of recourse.
Mm-hmm.
Question on 13.1.4, the last sentence is unclear. Let me go back. Turn
that page over. No, it's not.
Is it the old 13.1.4?
Yeah, the reign or forever. 0.4, this is it.
Oh, 13.1.4.
Any appeals of the decision of the crown must be made by the board of directors.
Oh, so this is talking about how you appeal. Okay. So if you would appeal and then their crown makes their decision on the appeal, after the crown makes their decision on the appeal, any appeal on that has to go to the board. Hopefully that clears it up. Maybe we can just put it in a separate paragraph.
No, I say got it. Thanks.
Okay. Let's see. Carried one. 13.1.4 peers clarify by saying SCA board of directors, perhaps not peers. I don't see peers. Oh, are you trying to say perhaps clarify by saying SCA board of directors?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I got you.
Okay, we got it.
13.2. Is there anything requiring the Queen to inform the person to be added to a court of courtesy the issue for which they will be accused of? Since there is no appeal, it would be nice to have the ability to prepare. There is not a requirement as such right now. We'll look at that.
I don't think it's unfair.
No, I don't either.
Mm-mm.
Thank you. We'll look at that. Okay. Now where am I at? Yeah. All right. Going to the next substantive change.
How about all those you eliminated?
Yeah. All of these, this is
13.2.
13 the old 13.2.3 all the way down through all of these were the very messy sanctions and cut and paste repeats that were originally part of this section. This has been pared down. It's been put into 2 or 3 new sections here, and the subjects that were repeated or we felt not appropriate for a Queen's Court of Courtesy were just they're back into a court of chivalry. All right. If a Queen's Court of Courtesy and a court of chivalry were the same thing, we wouldn't need both of them. So they have different sanctions accorded to them. All right. Terms and definitions were in Appendix A. Here we've changed things to be in line with corpora, king sovereign, queen consort, non-member registration instead of surcharge. Okay. We have removed under royal household appointments. Subsequent crowns may reaffirm such appointments as they see fit. These positions can include, but aren't limited to, kingdom warlord, royal champions, guards, etc. That really doesn't need to be said. The crowns have the ability to do that. It doesn't need to be said in law that they can do it. There's no reason they can't do it. So, Appendix B, kingdom awards and orders. Here again, we just cleaned up the language. Queen consort, and there was deemed, gender neutral language. King sovereign, deemed. All right. B.2.2, same thing. We've just cleaned it up to be aligned with corpora. Sorry. Let's see. The next substantive change. We are at B4.4, I believe.
B4.4.
B4.4. This is the definition or description of the Order of the White Scarf of Atlantia. And we have removed that last sentence, and instead we have made it this. The Order of the White Scarf of Atlantia honors and recognizes those subjects who have excelled in the exercise and advance in the noble art of fence. Okay. Next substantive change. B6, royal augmentation of arms. We just removed this. We really didn't feel it was appropriate. It related to children of sitting royalty under the age of 18, giving them a kind of a gimme. We didn't feel it was appropriate. We just removed it. The next substantive change. Let's see. I don't know that there is. I think these were all just renumbering here from and clearing up the formatting. Nope. Okay. So I think the next substantive change is Appendix E, Charter for the Kingdom Royal Notables, and it's E2. Kingdom Royal Notables are positions held in service to the Crown of Atlantia for the tenure of 1 year, except where noted otherwise. Okay. We'll get to E.2.7 next. We haven't gotten there yet. So E.2.7, the Royal Rapier Champion, we just cleared this up. The Royal Rapier Champion is for their excellence in rapier combat. We took out the title known as the First Sword of Atlantia. We just didn't see a need for it. It's the Royal Rapier Champion, just like it's the Royal Baker or the Royal Brewer or the Royal Bard or anything else. The Royal Rapier Champion is to be chosen by right of arms, shall serve a term of 6 months. And again, we just substituted Royal Rapier Champion for the name First Sword of Atlantia throughout this. All right. E3, selection of a Kingdom Royal Notable. Kingdom Royal Notable competitions are held annually at Kingdom level events unless the Crown sees a need to do otherwise. Competitions shall be run by the current Kingdom Royal Notable as a representative of the Crown in consultation with the Crown and appropriate Great Officer of State if applicable. If the Kingdom Royal Notable is unable to run the competition for their successor, the Crown, in consultation with the appropriate Great Officer of State, shall designate a proxy to run the competition. Competitions will be announced on the Kingdom announcements list and in the Kingdom newsletter or its electronic supplement at least twice before the event where the competition takes place. Period. The current, and we'll get to your comments in just a minute. The current Kingdom Royal Notable, in conjunction with the Crown and appropriate Great Officer of State, shall set the details of the competition and judging standard. Judges should be drawn from the following: the Crown or their proxy, the heirs or their proxy, the appropriate Great Officer of State or their proxy, the current Royal Notable. Additional judges may be chosen at the discretion of the Royal Notable. It is recommended that there are at least 3 judges. The Kingdom Royal Notables shall be chosen by the Crown, and Kingdom Royal Notables must be citizens of the Kingdom of Atlantia. Now, we have a comment back on E.2.7 regarding the Royal Rapier Champion. Do we need to update the terms for these positions because the term may be longer than 6 months? Yeah, just like ours, right? Hopefully this won't happen again, but so you're saying it could be extension?
Yeah, I would handle that. I'd handle that by exception. I don't think you need a law that says it might not be that.
Right. But thank you for the comment. We'll look at that. All right. And so all of these ones that we removed over here, it's really that there was a lot of redundancy and we just combined it into, one section instead of having it through a bunch of them. Section E, should there be a way for royalty to add additional Kingdom notables for arts which are not specifically called out in this list?
They can.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can just make it for that reign and do it. And then if they want to add it to this list, they would do it as part of Curia and it would be added.
Right. There's nothing forbidding them from doing it.
They can do it for a reign, for a focus. If you want a reign that's doing, something Yugoslavian for a reign or something like that, and you have a certain collection of notables that are specific to a reign theme, you can do that. If that is successful and it looks like it's got traction and you want to put it in and make it permanent, you do that by adding it to Kingdom law. There's nothing preventing the monarchs from being creative. Nothing prevents the great officers from doing so.
Right. But in order for it to become a repeatable Kingdom notable, you would have to put it into Curia. Right. So that's the way that you would do it. You would just add it to Kingdom law. I want
it's kind of the way Olympic events are added.
Yeah.
A host kingdom or the host country gets to add 2 or 3 events, and if those events are picked up by 2 other following Olympics, and they become official Olympic events for a period of time. So, I think you're welcome to try new notables, and if they work, they work. Yeah. Okay.
All right. That brings us to the end of the proposed law changes. See, guys, it's way before 4 o'clock. Um,
Wow.
What
What
time
would we
is
do
it?
at the time?
I know. It is 11:31. We did that in an hour and a half. Actually, it was less than that because we had some technical difficulties at the beginning.
We've got thanks to give.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone. We have captured all the comments. And we will be looking at all of those as well as the ones that were emailed us to in advance with an eye to seeing, do we need to revise this to be clear? And I think we've heard some today, some comments where I said, yep, we're going to change that. That clearly is missing. Thank you.
Every time we do this, we just constantly are reminded just how smart of Kingdom this is. So
Right,
this is
right.
this is a great process.
And you guys, anybody who knows it, if you spend any time at all making documents and creating language, you know how easy it is for you to get so used to the language that you don't even see the issues that are there. And so fresh eyes are always good. And so we thank you for your attention and your attendance today. Your input has been valuable and appreciated.
So special call out for the Clerk of Law and for the Seneschal.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Seneschal and the Clerk of Law, Baird and William, have been monitoring everything as we go through this, and
but they're working preparing for this.
Right, and they did the work behind the scenes and preparing for this. Breaking this into two, even the formatting where you could see the previous law on the left and the change to the right is all due to them, the way they set it up. And I think it made it easier. It certainly made it easier going through it and being able to respond to your comments, being able to see both sides easily. So I want to thank them for their work. And we are going to move pretty rapidly on this because we would like to meet the publication deadline for the next Acorn. So hopefully you'll see that come out. And once again, thank you to everybody who attended my Curia and His Majesty's Curia, and all the people who work behind the scenes, especially the IT people who kind of stepped in at the last minute to help us out in ways we weren't even knew we had to have help.
All right. Cheers, folks. Thank you all very